Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider podcast. I know you're hearing a different voice opening the show. It's because our leader, Vu Gwyn, is on the ocean, in the sea. He's with a bunch of Porsches on a boat. I mean, what could go wrong with a bunch of Porsches on the boat in the middle of the ocean?
Never again. Never
Wasn't
again.
there a shipping container?
That's what he told me not to bring that up.
Right.
He's with the Princess Cruise Zone Fest. So Zone 12, which is Florida, has a Zone Fest, which is usually on land. This time they wanted to do it at sea. And they had over 600 PCA members sign up for this cruise. I think the boat holds 2,500 or something. So the Princess Cruise people have been around to our events all year long, signing people up for different cruises. And I got to admit, when he told me this idea, I was like, it'll never work. But then again, I didn't think texting would ever work either. So don't come to me for
well, and
for
remember, you hated when we got rid of the cords on our phones.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he's
Did he really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
He's on the ocean. He's having a great time. He's been sending us photos. So the next podcast will all be about his adventures with the 8 days of cruising on the ocean, judging from his videos and photos. I'm sure he's going to want to do it again. And I think they'll probably end up having a national type cruise to another part of the world.
A giant Porsche boat.
That's right. So the other voice
Fantastic.
you're hearing is, of course, we have Damon, our digital media coordinator, and we have invited Bob Miller, who's done many videos with us and has been in a previous podcast, to come hang out with us because he just picked up a pretty cool car that he brought the Cars and Coffee on Saturday, and I thought that'd be pretty neat to talk about. Plus, we'll have Anthony from Member Services in a little bit later on. Anthony went to his first driver's ed, and I want to hear him describe how much sim racing helped him with driver's ed, because he actually is a very good sim racer.
I'm going to say it helped him out a lot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what parts it did, what parts it didn't, because after spending last week at Daytona for a couple of days with the Porsche factory drivers, that's one of the things I was curious about was the sims, and I think I talked about it in the last podcast, but it helps them with aero, the work on aero, but it's not exactly like the car. He said it's still things you discover by driving the car.
It's a little easier to push reset as well.
Well, I told him, I said, when I got to drive the $70,000 or $80,000 rig they brought to the office, I always wanted to take the kink at Road America flat out. But I never had the guts to do it.
Right.
And I said, so I got to do it on the sim, and just like I thought, I wrecked.
Okay, yeah.
So, yes, you can hit sim, and you don't have to pay an expensive bill. So so when this airs, it's actually the first day of Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah to our
Happy
Jewish
Hanukkah
brothers
to everybody.
and sisters.
Yeah.
I hit the road yesterday after work, and I realized I got greeted that it is winter time in Maryland.
Yeah, they're
you know
putting
why?
the brine down.
Yes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
For those who live in warm climates who don't know what we're talking about, brine is the chemical solution that they spray on the waterways, or not waterways, the roadways, that is white. It dries white.
Basically salt water.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
So it pre-treats the roads so that when it starts snowing, if it starts raining or like freezing rain, they really can't put down salt because it'll wash away.
Right.
So this helps give them a fighting chance to fight the incoming weather. What it really does, though, it scares the living daylights out of Marylanders, because just one sign of snow and it's sheer panic to the grocery stores. Bread and milk, of course, is the joke that everyone has to go get.
And toilet paper, don't forget that.
Yeah,
That's
well,
right.
toilet paper became a reality
Yes.
after the pandemic.
Yeah.
What could happen? But so I last night in the cold, in the dark, I decided to put on my winter tires.
No kidding.
I know. I should have done it
I can't
Saturday.
even believe that.
Saturday was such a nice day, and I was doing stuff outside and cleaning up my deck, getting it ready for the winter time, and I kept on saying there's something else I wanted to do because my winter tires were in the back of the Suburban, and I had to slay that of mine. And then when I saw the weather report, it was already raining. I'm like, oh my God, now I gotta pick some time at night to.
So what's the winter
change
car?
this. The same
BMW.
car.
Oh, okay. All right. Just curious. I thought you were going to say Suburban, and I could see that.
Yeah, see,
Schlepping around.
I don't do the winter tire thing. I have all-weather tires, so I don't have to change my tires year-round, and they're still good in the snow.
Well,
Although in the dry, they kind of suck, I have to say.
well, I mean, all weather. That's not a term. It's not
All season.
They're
right?
all weather.
All
they're
season.
called.
Right.
There's a difference. There's the three-peak and snowflake mountain sign, which in Europe signifies, I believe, that it can be used in winter where winter tires are required. But they're very nice, and it takes out the step that you had to do on the weekend.
But fortunately, I would take my winter tires. I love my winter tires. Especially, you at least have a front-wheel drive car, so you have a fighting chance. I have a Z3 with absolutely no weight in the rear.
Yeah.
So it's.
yeah.
I was amazed how good the winter tires made this car.
With that thing, I
perform.
think you almost need studded tires.
It does really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I showed my wife. We went up a hill with about 6 inches of snow. It's about as high as you can go because then you start feeling it in the bottom of the car scraping as you drive along. But yeah,
So my first car out of college was a '87 Mustang GT, and I remember sitting on a hill, literally, put it into first, got out of the car. So the car's still running in first, and I'm trying to push the car by myself up the hill because it just sat there spinning.
Spinning and
literally spinning.
That sounds dangerous.
No, it wasn't the smartest of moves, but
Did it work at all?
yeah, I pushed it
Nice.
and it got going and ran up, jumped in the side, and
I was going to
off
say,
I went.
once you're at the top of the hill, you
Right.
can't keep pushing, right?
Right,
You got to
no.
be ready.
That scene will play itself if it snows in Maryland. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But if it snows, that scene's played out in any kind of hill. You have people pushing these cars, and they're going sideways up the hill. And I always
Oh,
wonder,
it's amazing.
what happens when you hit the next hill? You just try to hope to find strangers.
Time for a new
Right.
car.
who are willing to push you up this hill.
Yeah, and all our fans out in the western states, I mean, the Marylanders, as they go up a hill, they slow down.
No,
Which, of course, everybody knows,
Not good.
keep everything moving. Nope, they slow down.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
It's funny, being from Southern California, I didn't really have to deal with driving in the snow. Whenever I went skiing or snowboarding, it was always a different driver, like my parents. But yeah, coming out here, totally different story. It doesn't snow a lot, which is why I think you see so many people who don't have winter tires on out here
Yeah.
and having all those issues.
I mean, we only get 1 or 2, maybe
Yeah,
3
exactly.
days. So,
It's hard to justify a big expense like that for a few days of snow.
yeah.
So we usually do start off the podcast with what we did last week. And as the winter time sets in, obviously stuff we do with cars starts to slow down. I know Bob and I always try to do cars and coffee. Obviously, it's getting colder and colder, so but we managed to do it last Saturday.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you actually brought out your 944. Well, I'll let you describe what you bought it, but it was on 7-year-old R compound tires you drove in. I think it was 30-degree weather when
30,
we were.
yeah. You tiptoed into everything and braking and all that kind of stuff, but it worked. So I showed up last week with a 1988 factory Porsche Rothmans Turbo Cup car. The good and the bad thing about a wonderful factory race car, especially this one, is it's got no heat. So I'm all bundled up with a hat and gloves inside the car, and you can see my breath as I'm driving. But literally a factory race car, you're driving on the street. And as Manny said, 7-year-old race tires, which is crazy.
Were those endurance racers or sprint racers?
Those were sprint races.
Sprint race. So
Yeah.
you didn't need to defog your windshield when it got cold out, or
I mean, they still had the air circulating up toward the windshield, and
Okay,
so it
yeah.
would blow it. But of course, the windows were down and all that kind of stuff. But this one just showed up from Belgium, and it's a fabulous car. The very first Rothman chassis ever produced, and driven by Ludwig Heinrich.
So before we go
nice.
further, we were discussing this at Cars and Coffee. The Rothman seems to be the most popular of the turbo cups, but then I started to ask you about the what was it, the Escort Cup?
Yeah, there was a U.S. Escort Cup.
And then I thought about it afterwards. I thought, wasn't there a Firehawk series too?
Yeah, Firehawk was later, more the...
was that the S2s?
Yeah, the
I
S2s,
think.
968, Firehawk series.
But then you told me that the Escort series never really happened.
Yeah, it didn't. They built 11 of those cars, and 2 of them went up to Canada for an endurance race. So those 2 were actually used. The other 9, nothing. The Escort series died before it ever started.
But after you told me that in the limited production, I kind of scratched my head because when we went to the All Drain Concours, we had the Friday gathering at the Point. Somebody brought a Escort Cup, but he had it in Rothman's livery.
Right.
So everyone walked up, thought it was Rothman's, and I started talking to him, and he said, well, actually, he said it's an Escort Cup. I just put the Rothman's livery on it. And I thought, but it's not what you just told me. It sounds more rare.
Yeah, it is.
A better story, I guess, than the Rothmans.
Well, the Rothman cars, there were 39 of those, and they were all raced. The Escort cars, 9 of them, as I said, they didn't do anything. I always thought, and this is very personal, I always thought the Rothman cars were the best looking of all the Turbo Cup cars. It was just a great livery, and all the cars were the same in terms of their livery. They differentiated with their windshield banner. And, that Rothman logo on the side was just very recognizable.
Nice.
Do you know why they stuck to Canada, just to the Canadian tracks?
It just was the series that was set up. It started out with the Rothman 944s, and I think that was 85 to 87, and then the Turbo Cups came on in 88, and Rothman was trying to increase its exposure up in Canada in specific. So, again, Turbo Cups were all over the world, but the Rothman series was very specific to Canada only.
Oh.
So this is a car that was built in Wysock, just like the 911 Cup cars were.
Yeah. The next year, in 1990, the C2 Cup came out. But yeah, these are factory-built race cars with about 52 changes from a normal car. The biggest of which were magnesium intake, magnesium oil pan, fiberglass front hood. Stripped out inside, no insulation or undercoating, bigger turbo, 928 S4 brakes, better programming.
Magnesium wheels too,
yeah,
right?
magnesium rims, which are very helpful. I mean, we've talked about unsprung weight, and so you can imagine taking a rim and splitting half the weight off. But these cars were very, very special. And they're really starting to get the recognition that they deserve. Very cool cars.
Yeah, I didn't realize for a long time that the wheels were magnesium because if I remember correctly, they look, and there's probably and they look like a standard phone dial.
Yeah, they do.
Correct?
Yeah.
So how would you tell, besides the weight, how do you tell if you're looking at a magnesium
because
wheel?
the 911 Cups had it actually said magnesium on the
right.
Cup ones.
Right, on the outside.
Yeah.
There's a stamping on the inside of these, but as Manny said once, wouldn't you love to show up at a swap event and there's a magnesium set there sitting for $200 because the guy has no idea.
Clue. This had to have happened at some point.
Yeah.
That someone didn't know.
But yeah, they're designed after the phone dials, but they were staggered up front and rear for larger tires, and they're very, very rare.
Yeah, I bet. So what's it like to drive?
It's so much like every other Porsche. It is its brother on steroids. Mm-hmm. So in 1988, Porsche came out with the Turbo S package, which essentially was a Turbo Cup car with air conditioning and all the amenities and all that kind of stuff. But the Cup car and the street car were about 500 pounds different. And so even if they had the same power, which they didn't, a lot of teams were saying we're getting over 300 to the wheels.
Wow.
The Turbo S was 247 at the crank. So the Cup cars really were amazing race cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did they check for cheating back then? I mean, they were using a chip. It wasn't flashed, right?
They did a lot of the things that they do today. They sealed everything with lead seals that if you take it off, it's pretty obvious. So they sealed the engine, they sealed the ECU, they sealed suspension, and sealed the gearbox. So it was pretty much up to driver and team how you set it up.
Does your car still have the seals on it?
It's got one of them.
Which one?
It's got the one on the head, actually, which means that it was probably rebuilt and then resealed by the series.
I see.
Yeah. But, again, if you love front engine, rear transaxle, I mean, it's exactly that, but on steroids.
Yeah.
I love that, but I love the fact that it's a factory built
Right.
race car, which I always say that you can probably ball it up, but as long as you have that chassis number,
Yeah.
you can rebuild it, and it still holds its value. Where I used to always say about my 911 that I raced it, if I ball it up, I've just balled up a street C2.
It's true.
It's
Yeah.
not anything special, but if I would have balled up a cup car, then it's worth fixing, which a lot of people kept factory race cars. They got balled up, and then later on when they increased in value, decided to fix them up because it was worth the repair of getting
Sure.
them fixed.
Actually, in its day, I mean, even Porsche, in the early 70s, it was a teeny tiny little company. So when they were done with a race car, out it went to the backyard. And just they were done with it.
Sold or crushed or
sold,
whatever.
sold off to a collector or a good customer or given to a factory race car driver. So you can imagine the scene, out there with a couple of older race cars just sitting out behind Visoc. It's just amazing.
And some of these cars were made only for one or two races at the most.
Yeah.
And then they went on to the next car. So,
Yeah.
So what drew you to the 944 Turbo Cup?
I mean, you guys know me. I am
It's
drawn.
very different from, the air-cooled stuff that we've seen at your shop.
Sure.
So far.
My very first car, Porsche, was an 86 944 Turbo. So it drew me with its looks, its balance, everything about it. Back then, I actually bought an 89 Turbo. And all the things that you wished from the previous turbos had been solved. I mean, brakes were out of this world. Acceleration was better. Limited slip, suspension, everything about it was better.
Yeah.
And so, for me personally, 944s are just, old hat and one of the chassis I've loved from the beginning.
Nice. Well, good to see you in a Turbo Cup.
Yeah, thanks. Well, you can be in one too. So
when we were racing, I mean, that at least 30% of the field was front-engine water-cooled cars.
yeah, sure. Think about how relatively inexpensive they were, and I mean back then, heck, you could buy a 944 for $15,000.
Oh, and they had ABS too,
Right.
which the 87, 88,
Right.
89 911s didn't have.
Yep.
So yeah, that was it was like a no-brainer, and plus it was a lot easier to drive, I think, than the rear-engine 911s.
Yeah, they
So-
were. They're a 50-50 balance, and similar to the Cayman of today. You get into a Cayman and instantly you're Michael Schumacher.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
Look how amazing of a driver I am. So it's
See, that's exactly what I say.
Damon's ego is going down because
right. But easy to drive, very fast, and then reliable. I thought always beautiful, and so you check a whole bunch of boxes.
Yeah, I had an S2 for several years, and I love that car. I still think the S2 is the best out of all the 944 and 968 range. I'm going to put that out there. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, again, the 968 was sort of the ultimate evolution because it took all that low-end power and gave all the high-end power of the turbo, and then a very refined chassis.
Yeah.
So I've had S2s as well, and I loved them. I mean, again, there's not really a 944 that I ever didn't like.
Yeah, same.
So, yeah.
yeah, and unfortunately, they used to be cheap, but they
No
also,
longer.
as the tide went across the pricing of Porsches, they became expensive too. And the Turbo S everyone it became the one you have to buy is the 88
Oh, yeah.
Turbo
Yeah.
S.
I mean, Manny and I talk about this. Porsche does not make a slower car. So
No.
every single year, it's like, well, what about this one? Yes, it's faster. I mean, that's their job.
Yeah.
And, it's the iteration just continued faster and faster and faster until the very end, which was, as you said, 968.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For me, it's the 968, the Vario cam. I don't know what it is, but I love feeling the car the S2 came on cam. Around 4,000, and the 968 more power, smoother, more refined. But that I actually like that less than the S2. And that's why I like the S2. If anyone was wondering.
Well, a guy that I really respect in the United States, sort of a mentor of mine, tells me all the time, it's a lot more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
Agreed.
So,
Which is why I daily a 138 horsepower old BMW.
well, then you're having a ball.
I am
must be.
flat out more than anybody else probably. on
Well,
the
and
highway.
what did you say about your 914? You're on the floor more
Yes.
than any other
I
driver
guarantee
out
it.
there.
Yep. I always tell the joke about being black flagged because they said my brake lights were out, and when I asked which turn it was, I said I don't use brakes there. I just lift 95 horsepower.
Right.
You don't have to use brakes. It's the wind will slow you down automatically.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I see Anthony walking around there. I don't know if he can.
It's
Bob,
about
if you
5
wanna-
minutes, I think.
If you want to lean in.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's see if we can get his attention. And while we're getting Anthony here to talk about his first TE, I'll remind everyone that if you're enjoying our podcast or any of our videos, remember to like, subscribe, and comment. That helps the show. We do read every comment, positive or negative. My favorite one was, are you guys high?
Good Lord. Well, Maryland just
That's
did
what
pass
we said.
that.
We
so,
said
yeah.
that's legal now in
Yeah,
Maryland.
it's crazy.
But I think that was when Vu did the video with Bogdan about the shoes and having him race
Right.
a Boxster that was.
Well, right now we're all in sandals, but no one would know, right?
Yeah, exactly. Although, if you knew me, I never wear sandals.
That's yeah. Well, we had an episode talking about Nathan Mers and his flip flops. That was
Good gosh.
one of our listeners was not too thrilled about that.
Porsche Design sold it to him, or sold the pair of flip flops. Can't have any issue with that, right?
Well, yeah, the Porsche design flip flops. So I think they're okay if it's
Yeah,
a
exactly.
Porsche. Now I'm sure Nathan's on this boat trip too, so
Yeah.
he's I'm sure going to send us a lot of photos of him wearing his flip flops around. Have you ever done a cruise, Bob?
Manny, I did.
I know you did. You didn't live on a boat, did you? At some point.
No, I lived in the Caribbean for about
That's what
a
it was,
year.
yeah.
And then I did one cruise. And what I will tell you is you can buy this option, which is a everything card.
Yeah.
And so basically you walk anywhere on the boat and you get anything you want to eat or drink or, access to these shows, et cetera, et cetera. And so we got so used to the everything card. When we got off the boat, we tried our everything card
In the outlet?
in other places in the Caribbean. It just didn't work. So
I've never been on a cruise, so
it's actually, if you go with the right people, because you're stranded on this giant piece of metal. If you go with the right people, it's great. If you're not, then theoretically, I guess you could be bored. But there's so much to do.
Yep.
So, Manny and I were talking about it.
Hey, Anthony.
Hey. Hi, Anthony.
did you get a phone call? Because I saw you hanging around there, then you disappeared.
Yeah, I just texted him too.
I was waiting for Robert to give me the signal, and he said, "Come back at 9:40."
Anthony works in member services, so Anthony is our first line. I don't want to say defense because that sounds like our members are attacking us, but the first line of communication that when our members call, there's a good chance if you hear male voice, it's 99.9% going to be Anthony answering the phone. So why don't you put your headphones on, nice and close to that microphone, pull your seat up,
It's backwards.
and he answers many a question for our members when they call up, including renewal for membership. Probably a little closer. You weren't here for the primer
orientation, right.
that these.
Is that close enough?
Yeah, that looks good to me.
Okay, Robert says you're good.
All right.
Robert Forsythe, the voice of God over our headphones.
I
no
know, I'm
one
looking at
sees them, but he's
Where did that come from? Right? I promise I've been good.
So how do you pronounce your last name, Anthony?
Saleiro.
Saleiro. I thought Anthony was Italian, but he's actually Portuguese.
Oh, no kidding.
So what a guess.
Yeah, most people think it's Italian.
Yeah, so I mean, with the last name like that, spelled like that, I thought
That's what I assumed.
it was
Yep.
Italian. But
And Tony, right? Anyone call you Tony?
Yeah, like my good friends will call me Tony.
Oh, so we're not your good
Yeah, I
friends?
was just going to say, you guys are relegating something else. My good friends, except for my PCA people.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Now you guys can call me Tony.
So how old are you, Tony or Anthony?
I just turned 29 last
29.
month.
Okay, I was trying to remember when I did my first driver's ed event,
Right around this.
and I think I was 26
Were
when.
you? Yeah. I think I was about Anthony's
Yeah.
age.
And but so the difference here is that Anthony was doing sim racing, which we didn't have.
Right.
We still had black and white TVs back then when we were.
I had Gran Turismo 4.
Right. I got up to change the
wasn't
channels. So, right.
So and he's very good at sim racing. He's won several races and
Just one.
this one. Okay, I know. I think you're faster than Jim Hemmick, who is our.
Yeah, definitely.
Our sim racing guru. Well, there you go. Damon has confirmed it. That
No kidding. Boy.
and I know Jim has a
will
lot more
admit it
seat time.
himself.
Yeah,
He'll admit it.
and so
If you get a call tomorrow, Anthony, from a guy named Jim, you know who it is.
so I thought I said, this is pretty cool to talk to someone who's done their first driver's ed, and but has done sim racing. It's like a different generation. So why don't you tell us? First of all, did the sim racing help?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I was different than probably most people. I think most people that do sim racing were first track guys, and then they do sim racing kind of on the side. And I was the opposite, where I started sim racing. I never did any sort of motorsport driving ever until last month.
So where did you have your driver's ed?
It was at Summit Point
Okay.
on Maine with Metro New York
Okay.
region, PCA.
See any deer out there?
No, I didn't.
That's good.
So Anthony, you drive a R32, is it?
At Golf R.
Golf R.
Yeah,
The
get
later-
with the times.
I am not a
R32 is like
VW.
10
I'm not a
years old.
VW expert.
Yeah, Golf R. It's the successor to the R32 in a
Yep,
sense, right?
essentially, yep.
So for the people that don't know, Anthony, give us the specs on that car.
Well, my car's been changed a little bit. What more specific?
Horsepower.
So they still have the
what
same
kind of-
engine that
right.
it came with.
Yes, it has the same engine.
Okay, so-
but I have a different tune and a different downpipe I'm running.
I think everyone that has that car probably has a different. Does anybody drive a stock Volkswagen?
Not many.
Yeah, they're mostly probably modified. And stock, I think it makes about 270 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque, but with just like a downpipe and a tune, it's mid 300s and 400
Yeah.
torque.
Yeah,
So
but if
it's-
you were listening there, you just heard Anthony's car being film trackside,
Oh, yeah.
and that is what a Golf R with a downpipe and a tune sounds like. It's very
So it's
nice.
front-wheel drive. It's,
All-wheel drive.
It's all-wheel
actually.
drive.
All-wheel drive. Oh, I don't know anything about these cars.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. So
showing,
the
doesn't it?
R32 brought out all-wheel drive, and they've kept that with the R models.
Is it
Yep.
a true PDK dual clutch system or no?
It's their DSG. So I think the difference is, I think a lot of the Porsches are dry clutch, if I'm not mistaken.
Wet clutch for DSG and PDK are both wet clutches, I believe.
Both wet clutches. Okay.
They're just VWs versus Porsches. But,
Yeah.
but the same thing. They're
So a
both
true dual
clutches.
clutch then.
Yeah,
The clutch
yeah.
disengages, engages.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, VW did that with the GTI all the way back in 05.
Wow.
05 or 06, whenever the Mark V came out. I'm pretty sure.
I think it was 06 probably here in the U.S.
Yeah, so 06. So Bugatti Veyron came out, GTI came out, and both had dual clutch transmissions. So that's what
So
I
we're
remember about it.
watching in car of Anthony go on Summit Point. Did you have an instructor with you, or did they sign you off?
I had Connor actually here from the office was my instructor. I needed probably a nudge from someone to actually go to the track. I wasn't the type of person who was just going to show up totally blind by myself and
Okay.
go around the track. So it was great to have him kind of introduce me. He's been doing the club racing stuff obviously for a long time.
Yeah, your line looks great, but to you, it probably looks like a television screen, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, the sim is where, like, that it can be really beneficial for learning the line and kind of where to be and when to brake. You get a great idea of that just from driving in the sim.
So what are the
What
tough
surprised you? What surprised you on the that you could do on the sim that you said, "Oh my God, I cannot do this in real life"?
How fast you go through the chute.
Oh, really? Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that's
that's
definitely a pucker factor turn. That's probably
Yeah.
the most pucker factor.
You're going
that's,
downhill with a slight right-hand turn, and the car feels really,
light the beginning,
really light
yeah.
and unsettled. And yeah, in the sim, you probably are not lifting much, and then in real life, you're braking before. At least I was.
Yeah.
We'll get you out of that habit.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing about the chute, some of the point is, you probably can take it flat out. You'll never stop at turn 5. The one time I tried it, I didn't stop. I couldn't stop in time because it was just I carried so much more speed that I realized that, you know what, I'm just going to get through this turn, and while I'm racing, I'm going to make sure that no one passes me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be play defense on this because you just couldn't go that much faster through it. It wouldn't pay off at the next turn.
How many hours do you figure you have, Anthony, at Summit Point sim-wise?
Ooh, probably. I mean, we did like the Series 8 in sim racing. We had an official race there, so I probably had 3, 4, 5 hours of practice, and then the race. So I probably had 5, 6 hours of time driving around. So yeah, when I went there, it was like, I mean, I knew exactly where I was at all times. I mean, you know what curbs you can take and what curbs to stay off of.
It's amazing.
From the sim. It's a very, very accurate representation of the track.
So PCA uses iRacing, right?
Yep.
And iRacing is what the pros use, and they digitally map these tracks. So
Unbelievable.
yeah, you'd be amazed how accurate.
So the bump in turn 9 is actually still there, right?
You
Probably.
can ask Anthony. I haven't driven Summit in a while, but
I can't. Which turn is turn 9?
it's the one before the bridge.
Before
one
the
that takes,
bridge.
Yeah,
takes
going
you
up
takes you
the-
to the bridge.
Where was there a bump?
Well, there's a bump on the inside at 8, and then the apex of 9, and then as you
It
track
kind of
out,
moves you over just a little
yeah,
bit.
Just moves you over.
But you know you're on the right line when you hit the bump because
Right.
it moves you over, and you're like, yes. If you don't feel that bump, something happened.
Yeah. And sometimes it's actually better just to be 6 inches off the bump because it doesn't unsettle the car.
Yeah, I don't remember a bump there, to be honest.
It might be one of these things where you can't replicate.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah, so
in
this
a sim.
there used to be instructors I remember when I first started that would drive by landmarks, I called them, and they could point out cracks in the track. And I would be saying, wow, and I guess just from autocrossing, you know, that I was used to looking ahead all the time. And I'm like, well, I can't be looking at that for that crack, but my eyes are like to the next turn, not.
Right.
But he would say, you know, just look for the expansion joint, put your right wheel on that, and
Right.
it was a totally a different style. But some people loved that; they would look for the those landmarks, or they would say, look for the top of the trees and
Right.
position your car.
And the
in
great thing
between
is,
that.
and then they came along and they repaved the
tree.
track and cut down the tree.
Yeah, like an example of that with Summit was before the last turn. There's a power line that goes overhead, and that was when you went under the power line. That's when you needed to brake.
And that was the same on
Yeah.
iRacing as well. Yeah.
So, what kind of car were you? Well, you weren't racing a.
No, it's at Summit
right?
Point in the sim. I was driving the Cup car, the new 992 Cup car. So, yeah, you have to remember that you're not in a 992 Cup car.
I was about to say, so your
When
braking probably was further back, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, when I was actually, I had to be kind of coaxed into braking later. I was definitely cautious for braking for the first part of the day, but I had like 4 30-minute sessions. So that video was from my last one. So I was probably getting the most comfortable with where I was braking.
I know
at that
yesterday we
point.
were talking about how it's hard to replicate, like you said, the feeling when you brake and your harnesses don't lock up, but they grab you.
Right.
And yeah, that's the expensive rig that we had here set up. They came for a day. I could feel the weight transfer, which was
No
pretty
kidding.
cool. Yeah,
That
yeah,
is.
that
That's
was
amazing.
very cool, and it was very gradual. The suspension changes because I've been in other full motion ones that shook so bad like an amusement park ride that, I joked, I would say, if my car did that for real, I would be in a pit so fast.
Sure.
Because something major broke on my suspension. But this was very subtle what they had set up. Did you feel that, Damon, when you drove it?
I did, yeah, especially on the brakes and trail braking out. You could feel it kind of pitch you up a little bit to give you that feeling of the rear end getting a little bit lighter.
Oh, yeah. I could definitely, for that rig,
Now, was that the $70,000?
$70,000 or $80,000, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
But you start thinking about it, and you can justify it very quickly of how much cheaper it is than real racing.
Sure.
But that means then you have to admit to your wife how much you really spent on racing.
Right. Yeah, we stopped looking at that long ago. So, Anthony, everybody's wondering, so what kind of times did you turn at Summit Point?
Ooh, I don't even remember. I think my best lap time
Very
was
good.
remember.
That's the
Yeah.
first
Oh, yeah.
excuse that a good driver always says.
Right.
Boy,
Boy,
you say
I
we
don't
weren't
know.
allowed the time.
Right.
it was a little a ways off of you what Connor drove in the wet. So
Yeah, but you're not actually officially timing anything because it's an
Yeah.
HPDE.
Yes, thank you, Damon, for clarifying
So
that.
Yes.
there's
It's not
no
official.
stopwatch in the car.
Right. Yeah, you
yeah,
might
the
be able
app
to-
tells you however accurate that is. The little app
Yeah.
I was using tells you on your phone
Yeah.
what lap time you ran. But no, I wasn't really paying too much attention, and I drive my car every day, so I'm not trying to set the world on fire with anything.
That's good. I used to have my wife is going to kill me if I wreck my car limiter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why I would brake maybe a little sooner than the next guy because I, wanted to bring my car home in one piece. And if you go there long enough, and for so many times, I'm sure Bob knows this, mentally in your head, you can see a wreck where someone's wrecked in every single turn.
Oh, yeah.
And that's very sobering. At Watkins Glen, that was really huge.
Oh, it's
And
amazing.
sometimes some of the regions at Watkins Glen would put the wrecked cars right at the exit from the garages.
Don't let this happen to you,
Everyone
right?
had to, it was like a drunk driving thing. You park the car from the drunk driver on the side of the road. Here, you pass by this wrecked Porsche, and that was very sobering as you went out.
A funny story. So the sad part about it is, okay, everyone's safe, everyone's back, everything's okay, and then the vultures come around. Are you going to use that part?
Oh my God!
Can I
yes.
use your tires? What about your brake pads? Can I just use them for the weekend? It's not even dead yet, So
I saw an Ars America get totaled at Summit, and
right.
the tail was intact, and people come up going,
How much you want for that
I'll give
tail?
you this much for the tail. I was like, wow, the body's still warm in there.
Just literally.
Yeah. Well, you got to jump soon,
You got
An opportunity.
hopefully, obviously, that'll never happen to you. But you see yourself doing it again?
Oh yeah, I'm already I'm wishing that I did my first one November 5th, so not a great time to go right back out. But yeah, I'm waiting for warmer weather, and I'll be out as soon as I can be.
Well, warmer weather is south.
Yeah, exactly.
Carolina
You got a good
Motorsport
point
Park,
there.
Savannah, Sebring.
Eventually, Sebring.
Yeah.
But I would suggest, since you're starting this off, and you're married, you're fairly new to the marriage thing. Not
Engaged, almost married.
Engaged. I'm sorry.
Right,
I was
right.
speaking ahead of myself. I would not bring up the fact that this is somewhat dangerous because it is. But then again, you look at the numbers; it's actually very
It's
low.
unbelievably
Yeah.
safe.
I used to tell my wife, if it was in any way that I was going to get hurt doing this, I would not be doing it. 'Cause
Right.
I'm not a thrill seeker. I'm not bungee jumping. I'm not doing anything that I think is risky. It's
The best thing you can tell your wife is, look, a Porsche factory race car is the safest car in the world. So if you love me, you'll let me buy one.
Right. Yeah.
yeah. There you go. It's a great way to start off the marriage.
Right, sure.
Yeah, I actually did see there were two, luckily not serious accidents, but there were two spins at the last turn. Someone ended up in the gravel, and someone did take a little bit of the tire wall, but nothing too bad.
Yeah, the gravel's fine.
Yeah, that's
tire
no
wall
big
not
deal.
so much. Yeah,
But that was actually in the more advanced, I think the most advanced group, which I believe for them was red.
yeah. My first driver's ed, it was actually sleeting,
Oh, my gosh.
and I had been autocrossing for about 6 years, so they put me in the what they call the blue group, so the second highest. But I'd never done a track event,
Right.
and but of course when you're so naive, you don't know that that's really unusual to be put in that kind of group when you've never been on the track. But the chief instructor was like, no, you autocross, you might as well just jump up to the blue group. And of course, everyone said, get your tires shaved. Don't get the BFG R1s full tread. Get them shaved. So I paid extra to have them shaved, which means all the tread's gone.
Right.
And now it's sleeting. And I got pictures somewhere of me talking to my first instructor, and there's snow laying on the car.
Oh my gosh.
And I went out there on basically bald tires. First time ever, just scared to death of between the car, being icy out there on our compound tires, on a track I never knew, getting passed by everybody and his brother. But it was a baptism by fire, and
And you lived through it.
I did
still
live
here.
through it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. But I tell people, start off in the green. Just start off in the green. It'll make your life a lot easier and more comfortable. But that's great. That's good to hear that Sim Racing helped you out. I think I wish I would have had it when I was starting
Oh,
out.
me too, absolutely.
Many a track we went to that.
Yeah. We're sitting around the entire first day going, now, wait a minute, how do you do this? Where's that? Right. Oh.
I know when Damon starts to do driver's ed, it's going to be interesting because I'm convinced that my autocrossing helped me learn tracks very quickly, where I could learn them within a few laps.
Right.
And know exactly, and usually the people I was with that weren't autocrossers would take much longer to learn the tracks. But in autocrossing, you got to basically learn it on that first run, so you can take advantage of the next 3 or 4 runs to be competitive. So when Damon starts doing it, it'll be interesting to see.
We'll see. I've done track events before, but since 2008, I've done 4 track days, maybe 5.
What's your car, Damon?
It was a S2 for
Okay.
Thunder Hill, one day at Thunder Hill. My S2 at Streets of Willow, 2 days. And the Streets of Willow was my first one. Then Barber Motorsports Park for the Porsche school. And that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Okay.
When it comes to track days.
Well,
Yeah, not a lot of experience,
now
actually.
Anthony can help you with the sim.
Yeah, I
part.
know. Now I'm going to have to... Can you
Yep.
be my instructor?
Sure. And yeah, I mean, you can join me in Green Group.
Well, I'm sure that's where I'll be joining. That's for sure. So when it comes to autocross, I know that you go out there, you autocross your car, and then you realize to go faster, you have to spend a bunch of money. So for a track day, I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. What are you going to spend money on next on your car to make it better?
I really don't know. I mean, honestly, probably the main thing I should do is probably invest in aftermarket wheels,
Yeah.
so I can run a wider tire and a lot lighter of a wheel
Yeah.
than like what's on it now.
So Manny and I have a lot of track time between the two of us. The best thing that you can do is invest specifically in you. And what I mean by that is time on the track. Because if Manny can take your car and go out to Summit Point and he's 15 seconds faster than you are, it's not the car.
Right.
That would never happen, but no, I'm just kidding.
But
I think that's a challenge from Damon.
there you go. Yeah, I think I think Summit Point's
What
calling our
hole
name.
did I dig here?
Yeah, but seriously, like I tell all the people that say, "Hey, Bob, how do I get into racing?" Just go up and invest in you. Spend all the money you would spend on tires and wheels and all that crap, and go up to driver's ed after driver's ed after driver's ed. And you'll see your lap times coming down, 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 and the car is exactly the same.
And nothing's more depressing than when you're chasing someone and you walk up to them and you say, "So what have you done to the car?" And they go, "No, it's all stock. I haven't done anything."
Right.
And you're like, "Oh my God, he's meeting with me with the stock
Right.
car." And just like Bob said, just because of
When you get asked
seat
that,
time.
you feel great, though.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's you're in that position. I mean, there was when I first started, I had the 964. It was stock, but it was still a 964. And there was this kid in this. I'm going to say kid, but he was probably like 2 or 3 years younger than me. In a 944, normally aspirated, like an 83.
All
84.
154 horsepower.
He was all over my rear end. And the instructor would say, "Just let him go."
Yeah.
And watch what he does and where he breaks. And it took me like 3 events to finally pass him. And that was like huge for me. I'm like,
Sure.
I finally went, but I was like, credit due. This guy really knows how to wheel this car around. And I could see he was hardly braking in turns and how he was taking his turns. But that was a big ego crusher to have the normally aspirated 944 pass your mighty 911. But then as you got more and more into driver's ed, you saw that a lot where
Sure.
you had the turbo drivers who would nail it on the straights, but then they would be snailing around the corners, and
Right.
that's the ones you
yeah,
love.
you're
to pass the
honking your
turbo.
horn and flashing, and no way, I'm not letting you by. I'm a turbo guy.
Pro tip: if you have a fragile ego, start with a slow car.
Yeah.
Because you always have an excuse.
Yes.
Yeah, well. And here's a paradigm for you, Anthony. Don't go out and buy stickier tires. Go out and buy basically all-season tires, because everything that you learn will be at a slower speed. And the lateral G loading on those tires will be significantly lower.
Right.
So instead of sliding at 1.2 lateral Gs, you'll slide at 0.6 lateral Gs. And then you learn all about car control, because the car's moving all around little by little. And then once you graduate, you say, all right, I've got this car where I want it. Now I put on stickier tires. Poof, you have all the car control in place. So just an idea.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be the person who over modifies the car before they've ever taken it to the track. So I am glad I haven't. I mean, I have H&R lowering springs, a little bit of power added, and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I didn't luckily do too much. So I probably can get a lot closer to the limit, like you're saying. Like I can make that car go a lot faster. But I luckily haven't done too much where it's like the limit is unattainable for a newer driver.
Yep, and always do brakes before you add more power, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't follow that one.
Yeah, safety stuff.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is where you feel comfortable. So put in a 5-point harness and a race seat before you do anything, because then it's safe, holds you in place. You can feel the car instead of holding yourself in place. And then you learn.
So what would you say, what's your best tip for somebody who has never done a track day, since you're pretty fresh off of your first one?
Well, I'd say obviously most places would probably make you have an instructor, but yeah, have an instructor, and if possible, yeah, do sim racing. Familiarize yourself with the track. It's like I could talk to someone probably about Watkins Glen and like, oh, I turn in here, and I never even been there, but just from the hours of driving it in the sim, I have a good idea of the track and how to get around it. So I mean, if you can drive it in a sim, do it for sure.
Drive it in a sim before ever going to the track. Yeah, that's
In the old days, we used to walk the track.
Yep.
And I remember they had me do a track walk, lead the track walk. And that's when I discovered I am the worst person for leading a track walk, because I guess I drove by feel, or I couldn't tell which brake markers I broke at, because I said, I would just know. I would look ahead and see where I had to start braking. So I would sit there with a crowd of like 100 people following me going, I think I brake at the third.
It's either here
and
or over there.
Where's the apex? And I'm like trying to position myself to like, well, by this point I'm looking here around the corner, and it's right around here. And I finally said to the chief instructor, I said, you need to get so-and-so, because he like knows every crack in the road and where you're supposed to have your right wheel at. I said, I'm not very good at, in a car as an instructor, I can tell the student, at this point, bring the car in, go take it against the curb. But when you walk it, obviously everything's very slow.
Yeah.
And
it's Manny and I came out of PCA Chesapeake and PCA Potomac, so we take it for granted. But PCA as an organization has absolutely the best driver's ed program in the country. There's nothing even close.
Yeah.
It's just incredible amounts of time. Great instructors, a national instructor program, so everybody is essentially teaching the same way, and safety. But it's a great program, and good for you for going on up and getting started in it.
Did Connor have a communication system?
No.
So you're just yelling.
Just yelling. Yeah.
Slow down.
It was mainly just on the straight. It was hard to hear him. He was trying to get me to get to the point where I was starting to hit the ABS into turn one. So he's yelling for get an ABS. But and then I was on I think it's turn maybe 3 or 4, that kind of uphill sweeping left-hander. I missed the apex probably 8 out of 10 times for that turn. I could not find that. For some reason.
Yeah, I learned early on that it was worth the investment on the instructor's part to buy a communicator, because that way you could talk just like I'm talking now.
Right.
And you weren't
Flailing
screaming at
your
the
arms.
student, or
Right.
worse, the student would hear something else. Like, you never say great. Never say great, because that sounds like break.
Never thought about that yet.
So yeah, there's certain
Noted.
words you learn that you can't say, especially if you don't have a communicator, because it can be easily heard differently. And so, and then you would go off. You would have to like discuss terminology, because you can't if no one ever heard the term "bring it in tight."
Right.
They're not sure what that means.
Right.
Or track out. They don't know what that means too. So I would tell the student, sit down with the student ahead of time and say, so when you hear me say track out, I'm like, I'm asking you to drive all the way to the edge of the track. And
That's not bail out.
no, it's a. I'm glad it worked out. You have to keep us surprised when you do some more driver's eds to see how you progress. Your lines look great, like Bob said
They
on the
really
video.
do.
So let's move over to some news. As we're reaching the end of the hour. Usually Boo like moderates this thing, and it's much easier being on the side, not actually having to have the
You're doing
responsibility
That's for
great.
sure.
You're doing great.
to watch it. Let's see.
Actually, we're going to kick Vu out for next time. I think you should just take over.
No.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Funny
over,
thing,
huh?
the podcast was my idea, and I produce it.
Right.
But it's a lot easier when he can do the moderating stuff.
Boo is a smooth operator when it comes to that sort of stuff.
So there's a recall from Porsche. 53 cars were recalled. Did you hear about this, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, what I understand, Manny, is there's a leather cover, right,
Yep.
for the airbag.
Yeah.
And those cars that got a leather dash that also cover the airbag, there's something up with the adhesive. So I'll have to assume either it's too weak and flying off everywhere, or too strong and not letting the airbag open. But
So if it goes off, are you going to have like a reverse airbag sign on your face? If it,
Yeah, probably.
right.
So yeah, I'm sure those 53 people have been notified. It affects 911s between 2022 and 2023.
So it probably isn't you, but if you have one of those cars,
maybe between
attention.
September 13th and November 29th.
Yeah,
so
leather,
odds are-
leather dash, full leather dash only is what I understand.
yeah.
I wonder if any other manufacturer, because the media loves when anything involving the word Porsche, they will they will put in there like a Porsche hit a person. All I said was Porsche hits pedestrian,
Right.
And it was all over like the news feeds, but you read into it, and this person like wandered into the roadway, and basically a Cayenne hit him at night. So it wasn't like a Cayenne was on the loose driving crazy. It was just this person was stepped off the
escaped.
road and went
Right.
into the road. But I know if it was a Chevy, it would have said a vehicle struck a pedestrian. And I know that drives Porsche nutty that anytime something negative happens, the media loves to tell people that it was a Porsche.
The media loves to go after the big guy.
Other news is that the Matrix headlights, the new version is coming out from Porsche. These are the ones that are like the 4 lights, and they look pretty cool and pretty mean. But one of my pet peeves is aftermarket LEDs, and Boo loves them. And I'm like, well, you love them because you're driving it. You're looking at them from the driver's seat. The cars that are coming to you are being blinded by factory LEDs are fine, but aftermarket, if the housing's not right.
Well, the amazing thing is if you read into this technology that Porsche is offering now because of our system that didn't allow it for about a decade, the lights themselves they'll know whether or not there's a beam heading out that could
they
blind
adjust, yeah.
somebody, and they turn off those particular LEDs, which is incredible technology.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law's Chevy Equinox has that sensor for high beams.
Right.
So it will turn on the high beams automatically, but when it senses headlights, it turns off. But of course, I don't trust it, so I turn it back on to make sure they're off.
Right.
And the funny thing here is that Porsche's had these Matrix beam headlights, a first generation for a while now, but they haven't been legal here. So this will be our first introduction in the
Yeah.
U.S. to these
10
kinds
years.
of lights. Yeah,
That's
10
amazing.
years. That's how long they've had
10
them.
years it's been
Wow.
over there.
We're always the last in headlight technology.
Yeah, what can we say?
So Oliver Bluma has confirmed that they are working on the new hypercar, which I was trying to get out of some high-level executives at the LA Auto Show, meet that I know, and it won't be based on the on the new 963, because that's a completely different car. Because when they came out the GT1, they had the GT1 street car, but it's not going to be the case here. But they pointed out that every decade, Porsche has been coming out with a supercar. So this will be very exciting to see what.
And you know what it looks like. I mean, these engineers are sitting around, and about every 10 years, they just say, all right, that's it. We have got to get this out of our system. And they come up with something completely different. Yeah. And, look back 10 years and 10 years and 10 years.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be all electric this time, or if there's going to be some sort of hybrid component.
Well, with the new fusion breakthrough, maybe it'll be Mr. Fusion.
Mr. Fusion, nuclear fusion.
Yeah,
yes, it's new. It's very, very, very new. Just announced this week that they
I haven't seen that. I guess
discovered limitless clean energy.
Yeah,
that's the promise, at least.
Yeah,
yes.
Mr. Fusion from Back to the Future. Yeah, you
gotcha.
Drop in a couple of peels of onions and bananas, and poof,
that's what
off
it likes.
You go.
Yeah,
right.
It said it on the news yesterday. It said it would make internal combustion engines obsolete almost overnight.
Well, it makes every
we'll
energy source obsolete overnight. Everything.
Yeah. We'll see how long it takes for them to bring it out, and put them in a car, right?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Well, like
very
I said,
cool.
I tell everyone, the Cars and Coffee we go to, there's guys with Model Ts that drive their Model Ts to the event. Yeah. So if Model Ts are going to be allowed over 100 years later, I got a feeling even if there may be nuclear fission cars running around, that we'll still be driving around our ICE cars if we want to bring them to an event.
Yeah.
You can imagine, what do you mean, Daddy? You used to start your car and it ran on gas?
That I'm convinced that we're going to be just in awe of the fact that our engine, we relied on transportation from an engine and how complex the engines are.
Right.
That'll be, but at the same time, I think that's what people come to shows to come see, hear people turn the car. Well, it was like the one time the guy, he went to the front of the car and cranked over the Model T. We were just all amazed watching this thing happen. And
Manny knows this about me. I'm going to totally geek out here, but imagine if we could just transport ourselves, because I'm a huge Star Trek fan. We'd step into whatever and we show up at our vacation spot around the world.
That would be great.
Well, considering I spent an hour and 45 minutes on a tarmac, delayed, I think we got a while to go before that happens.
But what about the journey?
Forget the journey.
So Porsche announced that they have been working on or they've had water-cooled 911s for 25 years now. Think about that. That's about as long as they've been. I think as long as they've had the air-cooled engine out.
Good God.
Yeah, I believe that's. I think our social media specialist is not even 25 years old yet.
Yeah, I think it's 24.
About 24, yeah.
So 1998, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And Porsche is like always a year behind.
Right.
So when they say, for us, we're saying, wait a minute, it's only 24 years, but it's actually 25 because they look at it when the vehicle was announced or came out at the show. But that says a lot that they've been building the cars that long. Because to me, I feel like the 996 is still somewhat new.
Yeah, and now it's a classic car. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
That's absolutely unbelievable.
It's
and Anthony's sitting over here. He's like, 996. What the hell is it? I mean,
well, I was gonna say I sort of remember when I was younger getting into cars and people like talking about water cooled stuff, and I didn't understand why that needed to be specified. I was like, yeah, it's water cooled.
Yeah, it's like, isn't that how all cool?
Yeah, I was like, isn't that how all cars are? Until I, of course, learned more about Porsche. But yeah, I'm a little younger.
Yeah.
So videos we have coming up, or not coming up, but rather that we released last week. We had two of them. We had the headlight restoration.
Yep, the headlight restoration. Vu did that, a week or two ago. And before that, it had been about 3 years since he had done a headlight restoration. We're not talking about like a nut and bolt restoration here. We're talking about making the lens, which is fogged up, nice and clear, and then protecting it. And Griot's Garage is what he used for that first video, and now this new video, he's using another newer Griot's Garage product, which I kind of feel like he liked using more than that first one. So
I love this. Well, I used the Cerakote version, but I think it's all about the same. They're using like ceramic, and I was blown away because I've also tried different methods to get my Z3's headlights to look new. And before they said you have to sand it and then put a clear coat on it that's UV protected, but it had never seemed to last more than a year. And it was a lot. Getting it right with the spray can of the clear was pretty hard.
Well, and the easiest way around that is to buy a Porsche.
They still do the same thing, though. As you can see, it's a
buy a new
Cayenne.
headlight.
It's a Cayenne. They're you could say the easiest thing is to buy an old 911 that has glass lenses.
There you go. Yeah.
But I told Vu, I said I'd done this on my Z3, and it was amazing how easy it was to do. So far, the Z3's had it on for about 3 or 4 months. It still looks brand new.
Excellent.
As far as from when I put it on. So give it a watch. It's you've never restored your headlights, and you park your car next to a Porsche that has new headlights. You're going to see how bad your headlights look. Give it a try, but don't be afraid that right before you put on the Cerakote, it is going to look pretty bad. It's really foggy, and you think you've destroyed your headlights.
It gets worse before it gets better.
Exactly.
Right.
The minute you put that Cerakote on, it just like cleans up, and it's because you can't put you're not supposed to put paint protection film on headlights now, right?
No, I mean we do a lot of paint protection film, and we don't cover the headlights because of the heat output. And then there's also a coating.
Yeah, the coating is what I've heard. Yeah,
and when the adhesive sort of reacts with heat, that coating sometimes can come right off.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody was getting their brought a GT4 RS here, and they said they were just going to basically bite the bullet and still get it put on their headlights, and just know that they're going to have to restore the headlights. This was a brand new car.
Yeah, yep.
But they didn't want to have a beat up headlight from not having any kind of protection.
Well, and those headlights they're unbelievably expensive.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And now with
It's
that
crazy.
new matrix technology, I mean, imagine.
Oh, even more.
I mean, $3,000 for a headlight?
Yeah. So it's a good video, short video, but it's less than an hour. Really, it took us to.
The video is short. It takes less than an hour to apply this product.
Yes.
Just to be clear there. So another video, Vu drove a 2001 911 Turbo, a 996 model, on Angela's Crest, and did a great job explaining what this car is about, but it basically has a lot of modifications that sort of turn it into a GT2, an all-wheel drive GT2 is what I'd almost call that car. So check it out, especially if you like modified 996s. Speaking of one of our next videos, we are almost finished with an edit of a 993 Carrera RS versus 993 Carrera RS Club Sport video that we did with Bob, and this was months ago now. It's just taken a while to get the video here, but
It was
it
so
will be
long
out.
ago we were in shorts.
Yeah, we were in shorts.
So hot.
It's not
Yeah.
a warm winter's day. It was shot a while back.
And unfortunately, my skinny legs are going to show, and sorry to the audience.
Yeah, we both have chicken legs,
Yeah.
so that's for sure. Pants next time, right?
Yeah, what can I say?
So 993 Carrera RS versus Club Sports coming up soon. We have a 996 Turbo model guide by Nathan Mers that you can look forward to. And then I'm trying to finish out a couple tech videos, which would be Rob's water pump on his 996,
Yes.
which we've spoken about, and at some point, hopefully before the end of the year, Macon spark plugs, which Anthony actually starred as I filmed in that video. So a couple sort of winter project videos coming up as well.
So good. Like, keep it nice and busy.
Yep.
You would think we have a slow period, but I haven't seen our slow period yet.
No, we're picking up right now when it comes to YouTube. We're trying to finish the year out really strong, and hopefully you all notice if you're watching on YouTube, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It really helps us out.
Yes.
Gotta put that dig in there.
It actually helps the club out. So help the club out and subscribe, because if we reach 100,000, it exposes our videos to a whole different group of people that may not see it just casually scrolling through YouTube. And we want to expand the club and get Porsche enthusiasts should join the club. I always say on our podcast, we're not asking you for money. It's a free podcast. There's no Patreon or extra
Just click
money.
like.
Yeah, just click like. And if you're a Porsche owner, not a member, join the club. For upcoming events, registration's opening January 4th for the Spring Treffin in the Georgia Mountains. The event is April 19th through 23rd, and I'm sure that will sell out probably the same day it opens. So if you're interested in going, mark down the registration date. If you're going to the 24 Hours of Daytona, which is January 28th and 29th, PCA has a corral and hospitality tent. We've had that now, I'm guessing, for probably close to 30 years. And I like to brag that we're the only car club that has what I call beachfront property. So we're right against the track, right at the kink and the on the straight inside the infield. It's a great location. It's not our own grandstand, but I call it our own because it's within our property. Right, and I think we can park close to 200 Porsches. Unfortunately, the corral tickets are all sold out. They sell out very quick, but it's a great place to see, like close to 200 Porsches, just Porsches. And trust me, when I was president, I tried to get in with a rental car. They would not let me in. They said, "We appreciate you being president, but you have to go find another parking spot." But the hospitality tent's a good size. They have closed circuit television. It's free to come in if you're a Porsche owner or a PCA member. They bring the factory teams and some customer teams, the drivers for a Q&A, an autograph session. It's just a great way to hang out and see a lot of Porsche friends. Have you ever been down to there, to the 24 hours for the hospitality?
I
PCA?
haven't been for your hospitality, but several times.
I have, and it's
24.
pretty sweet. It's a great location for
Didn't
watching.
you have a golf cart stolen during the 24 hours?
Yeah, we didn't actually. A team right next to ours.
Oh, is that what
yeah,
it is?
Yeah, that night they came in. They nabbed 3 or 4 golf carts, and ours was sitting literally right.
Didn't you
next
have park a golf cart somewhere, and then you went in like to use the bathroom, came back out, and somebody took it? Was you who told me this story?
They had moved it. They didn't take
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah, so
Oh, is that what you call it when you steal something?
I call
I'm
it moving it. That's right. Right. So we found it.
I found out when I was in Daytona for the media event that's actually in Daytona considered grand auto theft if you steal a golf cart.
Can you imagine?
Because I
course
guess there's so many golf carts, Anthony, in the communities and whatnot.
I can see that.
Yeah, the person was telling me, he goes, he guess a friend of his got charged with grand theft auto because he took a golf cart at an event. To use as a joke, and people reported it stolen, and they have sheriffs on property. They arrested them and charged them. I was like, wow, that's when I thought of Bob.
Yeah,
And
don't be grabbing a golf cart.
Works Reunion registration opens up March 3rd. Excuse me, it opens up December 14th,
Which is today.
Today. So actually, I'm sure a registration will still be open by the time you listen to this podcast. But if you're thinking about going and showing a car, I always tell people step up and show the pay for the I guess the judge it's called. You have judge and you have the corral. The judge is very easy. It's not a Concours. They won't tear your car apart. Not that a Concours does, but it's not as serious as a Concours. And I think it's better parking on the field. I think the 911 is the featured mark this time. That's where I saw an ad in the new pano. So anyways, by the time you listen to it, it's opened up. The event is March 3rd, and we're happy to announce that Tech Tactics East is actually happening.
Super happy about that.
Yes. It's we'll have the registration info it's the middle of February in Easton, Pennsylvania. It's 2 one-day events. I think a maximum of 120 people each day. Tech Tactics is 1 whole day of nothing but tech seminars. If that doesn't sound exciting to you, you probably don't want to come, but you'd be amazed. People love to come because usually we talk about the latest technologies from Porsche. I always thought people wanted to hear about the old stuff, but in reality, they really wanted to hear the latest stuff Porsche was working on. So we're trying to get a GT3 RS, the new one, which most people have never seen, especially having that thing on a lift and going through the technical part of it.
That would be amazing.
As well as the car, the off-road Porsche that recently came out the LA Auto Show. So the people at the training center where Porsche trains their technicians are very excited about us coming back. It was pretty cool to be on a call and see how excited they are about us coming back. So If you're on the East Coast and not too far of a drive from Easton, Pennsylvania, give it a thought. It does sell out fairly quickly. Anything else, guys?
I think we've covered quite a lot today.
All right. Like I said, for our listeners, Vu will be back next week with a show about his adventures on the ocean in the Love Boat. Yes. All right. So thank you for listening. If you aren't a current PCA member and own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Be sure to have your VIN handy, and you'll probably, if you call up, talk to Anthony. And for those who don't currently own a Porsche but you want to buy one, join our test drive program. Go to www.pca.org. Test drive is for people looking for a Porsche that want to be able to access our online classifieds, which is normally just open to members. Remember to follow our podcast Instagram page, which is Porsche Club Insider, all one word. Also, I would say follow our Instagram PCA page, which is PCA National. Bogdan's doing a phenomenal job of multiple posts a day and very creative reels. If you want to send us a message, leave a comment on the YouTube or email us at podcast@pca.org. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the road.